welcome to whatever you want to call this. Whether you want to call this my channel or just the fact that this is going to be on my channel, even though this is an assignment for my English class. But for a little context, this is a review paper, but my teacher, being the goat that he is letting us do other sorts of reviews. If we want to do a blog post, we can do a blog post, something like that. I decided, hey, why not do a YouTube video? So, as with many things in my life, decided, why not? And so today, this is a review of Wicked. Not Wicked for Good, Wicked 2024. Now, if you told me back in May of last year that I was going to be in college in a year's time, or I was going to live across the country in a year's time, or half of the decisions that I would make that would lead me to this class, to this assignment, were going to be there, yeah, I might have believed a couple of those. Now, if you actually had told me earlier this year, hey, Andrew, you're going to watch Wicked. You're going to like Wicked. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to become a fan of Wicked and the material and the lore and, like, the storytelling in that, I would have detested the idea entirely. But for those of you who don't know what Wicked is, here's a bit of a history lesson if you've been squashed by a house. Wicked, known in full as Wicked, the Untold Story of the Witches of Oz, is a musical with music and lyrics by Stephen Schwartz and a book by Winnie Hotzman. It's loosely adapted by Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, which itself is based off of L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and its 1939 film adaptation. Now, before I can get to this review of this film, there's so much stuff about the production, about the musical and the movie itself, and just about all of that I want to go over beforehand. Firstly, Wicked started in 2003 as a musical. It originally was a Universal stage production with producers Mark Platt from Universal Studios, John B. Platt from Universal Studios, and David Stone, with director Joe Mantello and choreographer Wayne Cilento. The original production of Wicked premiered on Broadway at the Gershwin Theater in October 2003. Despite mixed reviews, this production did win 3 Tony Awards, 7 Drama Desk Awards, and its original cast album received 1 Grammy Award. This all started because composer and lyricist Stephen Schwartz discovered Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel while on vacation, and something in him saw this potential for a dramatic adaptation. However, Maguire, at that point, had released the rights to Universal Pictures, which had planned to develop a live-action feature film. So, in '98, Schwartz persuaded Maguire to release the rights to his stage production, while also making what Schwartz himself called a impassioned plea to Universal producer Mark Platt to realize Schwartz's own intended adaptation. Persuaded, Platt signed on as a joint producer of the project with Universal and David Stone. The novel is described as a political, social, and ethical commentary on the nature of good and evil, which obviously takes place in the land of Oz, in the year surrounding Dorothy's arrival. The story centers on Elphaba, the misunderstood, smart, and fiery emerald green skinned girl who later becomes the Wicked Witch of the West. As she grows up and goes to university, and then later what happens after meeting with the Wizard of Oz, um, and her relationship with Glinda the Good Witch, who back in school used to bully her. Wicked, the movie from 2024, adapts the first act of this 2003 stage musical. The second part, Wicked for Good, came out about 3 weeks ago, adapts the second act. The plot of the movie follows Elphaba, obviously, where she was born of her mother having an affair with some mysterious traveler, and because of that, and because of a tonic that he would take, she came out green. Her father hated her for this. The kids around her growing up made fun of her, and it said that because of the fear that his second daughter would turn out the same way, the Governor Throp of Munchkinland, decided to give his wife a bunch of milk of the poppy, which, if you don't know what that is, look it up. This caused her little sister, her baby sister, to be born not able to use her legs. In the original book, she's actually not born without legs. Not born without legs, or not working legs. She's born without arms. But the movie starts with Glinda the Good joining in on the citizens of Munchkinland as they're, celebrating. Boom, boom, the Wicked Witch is dead, the Wicked Witch is dead. Hip, hip, hooray. But one of them, having heard some stuff that rumors spread, asked Glinda, "Do you used to know the Wicked Witch?" Glinda's like, "Yeah, I did. We used to be friends in high school. Or, not high school, in university." And that's where the movie starts. Now, as Elphaba is taking her little sister into the university, because Nessarose, her little sister, got accepted into Shiz University, Elphaba has an interaction because her father tells her, "Go make sure your sister's fine," all that, with one of the teachers who's belittling Nessarose. And this causes an outburst of the patronization. This causes an emotional outburst of Elphaba having magic go out, levitating all sorts of chairs, tables, stuff like that, causing people to freak out. The headmistress of sorcery studies, Madame Morrible, she sees this and she realizes, hey, this girl, she's got a talent. I want to nurture, I want to use that talent. I want to teach her how to harness this. And so, while trying to get everyone else to not be so worried, she then offers to enroll Elphaba and privately tutor her in sorcery. Elphaba accepts, hoping that she can finally fulfill her dreams of working with Oz's ruler, the wizard, who might change her skin color because she's not happy that she's born green. Unfortunately, through miscommunication, Glinda ends up volunteering to have Elphaba as her roommate, even though she was promised a private suite. Elphaba follows through the rest of this, or parts of the school year, with all classes, one in particular being Dr. Dilliman, a anthropomorphic goat who faces discrimination because, as we come to see, not only is animal professors in this university becoming outfaced, he's the last one, but just animals having all their rights are being outfaced. Um, One night she follows Dillamond to a meeting that he's having with other animals off campus, learning that somehow not only are animals being belittled, put upon, they're being targeted in some way, and they're being targeted and losing their ability to speak. Elphaba assures Dillamond that the wizard will set it right. After this, we get introduced to the new transfer student, Fiyero Tigalar, who himself is a prince. Um, this causes some minor stuff that sets up in the second movie about Glinda wanting to be with Fiyero, and Bach, a character that we get introduced earlier, wanting to be with Glinda, and Glinda saying, "Hey, you should go be chummy with Nessarose, because that'd be so nice, and I would admire anyone who does that." Just to get him off her back, which not the nicest move, but things happen. Fiyero, Glinda, all of them, they go out on the town, but as a joke, Glinda offers Elphaba this black hat because it goes so well with all of her stuff. Elphaba, thinking this is sincerity, not realizing that it's a joke, asks Madame Marble to include Glinda into the sorcery studies with her, and then goes to the same party that all of them are going to. Glinda, finding out from Madame Marble about this at the party, and then seeing Elphaba being ridiculed, realizes that what she's done is wrong, and she, in an act of undoing her wrongs, decides to interact and become friends with Elphaba. Later on, in Dr. Dillamond's class, some days, weeks later, he addresses the class that this will be the last lecture, that they're phasing him out, they're replacing him, before Emerald City Guards come in and take him away, and a new teacher is introduced. This teacher brings out some cart with a thing over it. He pulls the drape off the cart, and in a small little cage on the top, you can see a little lion cub. This outraging Elphaba, she has a bundle of poppy flowers that she was going to, give to Dr. Dillamond, just out of the fact that he's one of her favorite teachers. And in anger, she slams him around, and dust and pollen from these, and the flowers just start to float, spin around, and everyone in the classroom, except for one person, aside from Elphaba, fall asleep. Fiyero, doing the right thing, and convincing Elphaba to help him, both take the lion cub out of the cage and take him off into the wilderness. Here, Elphaba admits her feelings to Fiyero, who she has a bit of a crush on. An unknown amount of time passes between that and then, but it's probably a few weeks to a month, because Fiyero's been thinking a lot, which Galinda's not the happiest about. But Alpha receives an invitation from the wizard, who is now made aware of her powers. She travels to Emerald City with Glinda, who now is calling herself Glinda in misguided solidarity for Dillamond, who, due to the fact that he was a goat, would always pronounce her name Glinda. Could never go Galinda. As they meet with the wizard, they are surprised to learn that he's just an ordinary man, and Madame Marble comes here as well to, be there to support her pupils. Marble and the wizard, they both urge Elphaba to cast a levitation spell using the Grimoire, a sacred book passed down generation to generation of spellcasters in Oz. This spell she casts causes the monkey guards to painfully sprout wings. The wizard and Marble rejoice over this newfound ability to use the monkeys as personal spies, and on hearing spies, Elphaba realizes that they're the ones behind the animal's oppression, and that the fraudulent wizard, unable to read the Grimoire and lacking real magic of his own, used her to subjugate them further. A horrified Elphaba seizes the Grimoire and flees. Glinda, wanting to help her friend and feeling bad, follows Elphaba, but she refuses to stop as Marble denounces her to all of Oz. Glinda and Elphaba try to escape the Emerald City in the wizard's hot air balloon in one of the towers, but the way is barred and the balloon burns up and comes crashing down onto some guards. They go further and further up in one of the towers into a high palace attic. Elphaba repeats the levitation spell on her broom and it escapes the city. Glinda doesn't follow, and they share an emotional farewell before Glinda is apprehended. As this is all happening, we see that Fiyero is on horseback amidst a mass evacuation, and Elphaba's father, Governor Throp, upon hearing news over magic radio or something, suffers a heart attack and passes away as him and Nessarose receive that news. Elphaba says, "Come find me. I'm fleeing west," leaving Glinda and Marble behind. Now, not my best summary of anything. That's very fair. But I'm trying to fit this all into a video. Now, I want to start my review with going over my opinions of the cast, because especially when it comes to musicals, which this is a musical, even as a movie, it's still, you have all the musical numbers. I have some opinions on this. I'm a huge musical theater nerd myself, loving shows like Heathers, Hadestown, Chicago, wanting to do, something in this field at some point, whether it's like musical theater, or just film in general. So I was actually extremely happy to see that some of the leads and even higher supporting cast were musical people with musical theater backgrounds. For example, Bach from Bach the Munchkin. He is he's played by Ethan Slater, who, if you haven't seen SpongeBob the musical, it's not the best musical if you ask me, but he plays SpongeBob in that. And, Elphaba's played by a great cast member, no, it's Cynthia Erivo. Look, in no way do I hate this woman, but the publicity surrounding her is You got to get a little chuckle out of it. And I do find her mildly annoying. Uh, but when it did come to her delivery as Elphaba, I think that she just did a phenomenal job. There's always an edge that Elphaba kind of has had to have, um, being the fact that what is so central to her character isn't blah blah blah. I can do magic. Blah 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 blah. Oh, I become the Oko. It's she's green. She's born green. That's unnatural. You don't think about it when you're watching the 1939 film, but that is something that is so important to her character. Now, there's an edge that Cynthia Erivo can draw upon, an experience that Cynthia Erivo can draw upon being a person of color herself. And that is, again, that ability to use that life experience, or like life experiences like that, and being able to relate to a character, having that representation in a way, that even in the 2003 musical with Idina Menzel, which, you know, phenomenal uh, actress, phenomenal singer, but there's a realness that Cynthia Erivo really does put behind this character. And not to forget, her vocal talent in this is just entrancing. If you go listen to What Is This Feeling, or, you know, Defying Gravity, it's one of the most well-known musical numbers, Defying Gravity, but just, if you go and listen to Cynthia Erivo's version from the movie, it's almost magical to listen to. And again, in What Is This Feeling, even though it's a duet, which Cynthia Erivo takes a backseat to Galinda, who is played by Ariana Grande, it's just phenomenal. Now, for Ariana Grande, I remember growing up, I remember watching Victoria. Or not Victoria, Victorious, or whatever it was. I remember watching all that stuff on, like, Nickelodeon and all that, with her in it. I remember listening to her music on the radio growing up. And she was never really, like, one of those people that, she's just, to me, it was always like, oh, you're just a celebrity who is in a TV show. You're a teen actor. Nothing too special, but she just, I think the core of this movie isn't Cynthia Erivo's Elphaba. I think it is Ariana Grande as Galinda. From being able to play that Glinda that you see, who is still celebrating with the Munchkins, but there's still an edge to her that is mourning the loss of her friend at the start of the movie, to you see her when Elphaba arrives and being this bully, being this awful, Regina George-like mean girl, to having a strong emotional connection, but still a very weird and one-sided way of looking at the friendship still, because of those inherent mental biases. And just Ariana Grande's flexibility in this role, ignoring her singing entirely, Ariana Grande's flexibility in this role is something that I wasn't expecting from her, wasn't expecting from a movie adaptation of a musical, or because of my own biases, from Wicked itself, which this is my first time actually going and watching this. I watched this movie specifically for this assignment. Um, Now, vocal talent for Ariana Grande. I've listened to her music. I'm not her biggest fan. You know, I have a friend or two that loves Ariana Grande. Not my type of music. But holy moly. The vocal range on her, because it feels like in some of those songs you're listening to her, she's more sitting in like a lower soprano, maybe an alto range, and then you're hearing her in like this opening song, "Wickedness Must Be Punished," or um, in "What Is This Feeling," when she's going loathing. It's like high, and it's like there's just amazing range on this person who is like, you have this vocal flexibility, you have this um, theatrical flexibility. It really brings in, and it ties so much of this in neatly. Now, like I said, Ethan Slater is Bach. You don't really get to see much of his character, let alone any of his singing. I've never really liked the guy because I didn't like the SpongeBob musical. Um, so my opinion on him is relatively neutral. But I heard he did pretty good, or pretty bad, in Wicked for Good, depending on who you ask. Um, and now to the next one. Fiyero, played by none other than, yes, I do mean this, none other than 2025's sexiest man alive, according to People's Choice magazine, of course, Jonathan Bailey. And I mean, yes, please. I've never seen Bridgerton. My mom has. She loved it. Never seen it. But I did see Jurassic World Rebirth earlier this year, in which he is one of the lead characters in. And compared to the rest of the cast, he carried that film on his back somehow, like no-handed. He was juggling while doing that, because I personally loved that movie. Um, I'm not going to go into an analysis of that movie. I'm here to review and analyze a little bit, but mostly review this movie. Um, but he did phenomenal, and he just, alongside Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, he just comes in, and you don't see, oh, that's Jonathan Bailey's face. You're like, that's Fiyero. He doesn't sit there. You're not seeing this as a actor who, like, um, Marvel with some of these people, they get typecasts as like more for their face. They get cast for their face. Oh, here's a big name. Oh, we got Dwayne The Rock Johnson in this movie, yada, yada, yada. So it's going to be good because The Rock's in it. I mean, look at how Black Adam went. Look at how Jumanji 2 went. Look at how Moana 2 went. Those all had Dwayne The Rock Johnson in them. Now, he's a character actor before he's a face. He's a household name by now, but he's a character actor first. And man, he plays that fun-loving prince from another land probably better than any other person I could say, oh yeah, they could do that. I don't think anyone else could do this role. Now, you also have Jeff Goldblum as Wizard of Oz and Michelle Yeoh, as Madame Marvel. They're not the best singers, but again, especially Michelle Yeoh, she is a character actor before she is a thing. Jeff Goldblum is really that kind of one exception to this rule of, let's have a big name in a movie, but he's still not there. He plays Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz. Pretty much. He basically plays himself like he does with every other character, but that's also what people love from Jeff Goldblum. That's why people love to go back and rewatch the Jurassic Park franchise. That's why people like love to go back and watch his other films, because he has this amazing charm, he has this amazing charisma, even if he is not a character actor and he really acts as himself. Um, and there's some other supporting characters, especially in the people who played Nessa Rose, um, Governor Throp, and Peter Dinklage as Dr. Dillamond. Now, Peter Dinklage didn't sing too much, if at all. I can't remember too well. And Nessa Rose and Governor Throp really didn't sing all that often. I think Nessa Rose had like one line of song, two lines of song, and like one song, and Throp only like was in like the first musical number, and then he has like maybe like less than 3 minutes of screen time throughout the whole 2 hours and 30 minutes, maybe pushing 5 minutes of screen time, something like that, barely on screen. Um, and I think they did well. They're character actors before they're anything else. Peter Dinklage, again, one of those names that like, yeah. But if you remember Game of Thrones with him as Tyrion Lannister, or you've seen Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, where he plays the Dean, he just it's phenomenal. He's a character actor. He acts a character before that, and I think that when it came to Wicked's casting, the direction that they did for casting, they did phenomenal. They didn't have people who were going to sit here and, be a Dwayne The Rock Johnson um, out on screen. They had people that came in, didn't say, I'm going to play myself as this. They said, I'm going to play this character, and they played that character. When you watch it, aside from Jeff Goldblum, every other character, every other actor comes in and they deliver that character well. Now, aside from casting, I have some grievances with the plot, and you could say it's a bit of a tornado of opinions. Now, my main grievance is how Wicked fits in with Wicked for Good. The one thing that most people talk about when it comes to the musical, or when it comes to the movie, is that the first act is really good. But stretching the first act of a 2.5 hour musical into a 2.5 hour movie, just the first act, is a little insane. There are certain spots that feel very slow throughout this film. There are certain spots that they just don't hit as hard, and there is definitely a pacing issue throughout it. Secondly, when it comes to Wicked for Good, I haven't seen it yet, but the second act of the musical is just boom, 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 over and over and over and over again about all these other different plot points. Fitting all of that into again, another feature-length film, 2 hours, 30 minutes, is insane, but I'm not here to review that. Aside from its pacing, I definitely do think that ending the movie with Defying Gravity, which is the end of the first act, obviously, was a really strong thing. It is just a shame that they use one of the most famous songs in all of musical history to end it, and then the second act just doesn't have any songs that really hit that same way, aside from No Good Deed. I definitely do find, again, that um, having this is like it's a bit of a problem, because more so when you're looking at it from a money, like a box office standpoint, is you're wanting to get people not just to spend a lot of money, go watch your film, buy your stuff, and obviously to tell a story, all that other stuff, but from a box office point solely. You are also promising them a sequel. You're saying this sequel's going to be the second act. This is how we're structuring all this. This is the framework, yada yada. And then just not having as many songs that really get out there, push, have that same renown. You look at a top 10, top 20, you know, thing for musicals, you're gonna see like Wicked up there, but it's really only going to be Defying Gravity. Other ones that you're going to see, yeah, you're going to see a bunch of Les Mis. You're going to see Evita. You're going to see, Cats, Chicago, stuff like that. Phantom of the Opera. You're going to see those, but there's only really going to be one Wicked song. There's probably only going to be one Evita song. Like the only thing I can think of from Evita that really has that same renown, and that same people are like, oh, this is the best musical theater song ever written, is "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." You know, you get Les Mis, you get Do You Hear the People Sing, you get On My Own, you get Bring Him Home, you get I Dreamed a Dream, overrated song by the way, but you get all these hits, and Wicked has one or two hits, one of them really only being the only one that is going to stand up to these other musical theater bits. And Les Mis has gotten a film adaptation. Phantom of the Opera has multiple film adaptations. Hamilton technically has a film adaptation. Cats is a film adaptation. You don't, but Chicago even has a film adaptation. Really good film adaptation too. But you know, these films, they're here and there when it comes to how it is. Instead of, it's the problem that a lot of movies that are based off of musical theater or musicals themselves encounter is, instead of this is a one-time experience, it's not really a world, is you're using your imagination a lot when you're seeing a musical or a play, because you have one stage, you have to get all the sets in, all the sets out. Oftentimes for musicals, for example, Heathers, they use one stage with props that they will rotate in and out. Um, i.e., the off Broadway version for Heathers, they have the one stage that they use. They change around a little bit, and they have some stuff that can move that is always on there, like steps, um, which they use to make the car for Blue, and um, they use in uh, Dead Gay Son as well to hold up the helmets. But if you watch the off Broadway version, you also see that they have a counter with bags and stuff like that they painted just pink, that they use for Freeze Your Brain. Or they use a very similar prop painted the same color, put in the same position for when this is a spoiler for not only Heathers the musical but Heathers the movie, for um, when JD and Veronica go break into Heather Chandler's house and to get revenge for Heather Chandler just being a huge, awful, horrible douchebag person, um, instead of actually giving her, like awful, yucky hangover cure, um, and then hawking a loogie into that. They accidentally well, accidentally. JD puts drain cleaner into a mug. Heather accidentally gives it, or Veronica accidentally gives it to Heather. And, no, they use those props cleverly, and every musical has to use props cleverly. Every theater production has to use its stage cleverly because they only have the one stage. Now, movies don't have this problem. They can make entire sets for different locations. They can use CGI nowadays to completely transpose those sets into a land that doesn't even exist. And this is an issue that you see extremely prevalent when it comes to Cats and its god awful adaptation. And this is something that I would even argue you see happen with Les Mis, where with the adaptation with Hugh Jackman, it just it feels weird. And I really do think that Wicked has the same problem. Um, but this is more a problem with this type of like film as a whole. Um, it at times is like you gotta consistency and like just mental consistency as a viewer is hard to keep with that. Um, I also really do think that certain parts, like the animal cruelty, animal injustice, and that of the effect of race and class on society, that not only has humans, but also has munchkins and other bits of magic and all this other sort of stuff. A society that we couldn't even begin to comprehend ourselves because we've never lived in a society like that. I definitely think more into the world building of this version of Oz in the film would have been good to fill in that space as opposed to copying um, over the first act. You definitely do see that, but it's mostly just through Dr. Dillamond, who, if I'm not mistaken, isn't even a character in the original um, musical. And because of that, I feel like you don't get enough time. You get what you need to know, but you don't get enough time to be immersed into this world, which, as a writer, as a storyteller, as someone who has made my own world, has made my own creations for other people to interact, other people to have fun in, and stories to be told in that by other people and by myself, to see that potential go to waste saddens me a little bit. Um, Especially the fact that they had a setting like a university, already a melting pot of ideas and of people, and that they didn't just grab it by the reins and go further with it with the amount of time that they had. They had plenty of extra time. I think it was a shame to not see that. I do really love um, kind of the way that Wicked, and this is with the book as well, from what I know, it puts Oz, the wizard, and these people not as some whimsical thing that you see in the 1939, where all good, all that, the dream of a perfect society, but it shows the flaws inherent in a society that is deemed to be perfect. Um, you see how people who are given this absolute power, how people who are hyped up to be all this, how they can subvert those expectations. You see that with the wizard. You see how this expectation of him being this magical person who can and will grant a wish to anyone. You see that, and you see how it's a ruse, and how kind of that real magic is not in this world anymore because people like the wizard took advantage of it. And the people that are gifted with that real magic, they're the ones deemed as wicked. My favorite part about this, my favorite part about research and all this is honestly the message of this movie. And that is, what is wickedness? Is an action done with good intentions, but a bad outcome wicked? Or as wicked as a outcome, a bad outcome with bad intentions? It begs the question, and it asks the viewer, although I feel the movie could have asked the viewer a little bit better. It asks the viewer, what makes a person wicked? What makes them a villain? What makes them a bad person? Are you bad because you saw something and you called it out, even if it was against the system? Are you bad because this, and this? Are you bad because you didn't say something? You didn't call it out. You watched it happen. It's perception of who's in charge. That's all for my review. It's a pleasure doing this. It's a very long video, considering that this is only going to be the second video on my channel as a whole. Also, this is really crummy. I'm doing this with my light being my phone flashlight. A shadow from my hand constantly being seen right there in the background. Swinging this around, doing this with only one take, with a pretty shoddily written script, without my glasses, so I couldn't even properly read parts of the script, and going off script for quite a bit of it. But this is, I feel, my best opinions that I can give, and it's definitely interesting that this is the second video that's going to be on this channel. The first one being another poorly done clip of me drawing and doing a little story, which the audio of that was done at 3 a.m. So this is a little bit better. It's better than a phone mic, but at the same time, not as good as my mic for my actual setup. So hopefully that if I do another video, hopefully I can, you'll get better audio and you'll get better quality and a better thought out video. But thank you to my teacher. Thank you. I really appreciated not just having to write, especially with everything that's been going on, with my new job, now working, almost 60 hours. I'm working like 60 hours between a bi-weekly thing. I'm working practically full-time on top of being a full-time student. um, I don't have a lot of time for a lot of other stuff. I'm just exhausted all the time now. uh, but it'll get better, and I just appreciate the opportunity to do something in a different creative sense. I'm not going to take this video down at all on my YouTube. It's going to be up there as a reminder of where I came from. For everyone else, if you like this sort of content, I might do it again because I'm becoming a film major. Um, but if you also like the other video that I have, that drawing, and would like to see more of my world building project in the future, I would love to be able to share it. Have a good one.